Anybody had a chance to catch my new video series? You guys seen the new video series I launched? I think I've done 3 videos. 3 videos are out now. We're just now getting to Berkeley and at Meet BSD.
So I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Why have you struck out with your own individual YouTube channel? Excuse me.
Well, because it's a couple of things. Good question. I've been over the last year, I've become more of a YouTube content consumer. I've always just sort of viewed YouTube as the place that is, it's like another RSS feed. We put another dump of our stuff on YouTube. And I haven't given a lot of thought to how people actually watch content on YouTube. And so as I started watching more and more of my content on YouTube, because I don't have any other really great way to watch current daily television, and I got the Android TV, and it just sort of changed how I consume YouTube. And I realized that I don't like the channels that post all kinds of stuff. Political stuff, development stuff, tech news stuff, Linux stuff. It's like it's too much. I when I sit down and watch the television, I'm kind of in a track. I have something I want to watch, and so because this wasn't technical, it's not really about Linux. It's not about information security or networking. It's really more about me, and it gets more personal as it goes on. It sort of felt like I would be disrespecting the subscribers of the Jupiter Broadcasting channel because I was sort of dumping something in their feed that wasn't why they subscribed to Jupiter Broadcasting. They subscribed for technical content. Oh, and here's 10 videos which are tangentially connected to technical content, but only for a small percentage of them enjoy. But people like it. And so it just felt like it was probably more appropriate to do something that was like this on my own channel. And then if there is probably, I don't know yet, but long term, if there seems to be a lot of interest and it's worth a lot of effort on my part, I would probably continue to produce it as a side channel to Jupiter Broadcasting that's more like the show behind the shows. This is Linux Unplugged, episode 173 for November 29th, 2016. Welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that's got a random craving for curry and beer. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Hello, Wes.
Yeah, you've got me hungry.
Let's be honest, Wes. We have a news-packed show, and Chris has been complaining for the last few weeks, hasn't he?
Yes, it's the dearth of the news.
What's going on?
But now it's back.
I guess everybody was just on not Halloween break. I'm not sure what they were doing.
Thanksgiving break. Now they've got their food. They've got fresh energy. They're making.
They're all back, and they're making
Linux
tons
updates.
of open source updates. We're going to cover a lot of them coming up on this week's show. We're going to start with the only non-Linux stuff that's worth talking about, just right here at the top. We're going to take our medicine, and then moving on into the show. Did you hear about the core VLC developer who says no one cares about Linux?
That hurts.
It did hurt. And apparently it hurt him too, just as much. We'll tell you why. Plus, Debian's making a big change. Ubuntu's going to go with a rolling hardware kernel. What? Is that really what's happening? We'll tell you about that. Snaps have some nice updates coming along. We'll get a little state of the snap. The new XPS is out, but there could be some big limitations. And then we're going to get super nerdy with Wes. We're going to talk about NetData backends, data miner DB, and all of the crazy stuff he's been working on in his day job recently.
You know it.
I'm really looking forward to this because Wes, I don't know if it comes up in the show very much, but you are heads down in this stuff all the time, and you're working on some of the most buzzword-heavy stuff that we talk about.
Ain't that the truth?
It is actually your day job, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then also just sort of a heads up for noobs on managing devices in Linux. And then last but not least, I'd like to round out the show with a classic conversation. It came up in light of the Fedora 25 review we did, and that is upgrade versus Nuke and Pave when you're doing a new install or like a new release or et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, if you just watched this week's episode of Linux Action Show, I'm referring to my upgrade from Fedora 24 to 25. Right. I've gotten a ton of feedback, and by feedback, I mean extreme criticism. One nice probing like, hey, Chris, why did you choose to do it this way? And about 95, you moron. So we're gonna talk about those and talk about upgrade versus Nuke and Pave, because I think that's sort of a classic that we really haven't tackled much on this show. So there's a ton of stuff to get into. I did mention we have some veggies. So to help us chew on these, let's bring in that virtual lug. Time for appropriate greetings. Mumble Room.
Meat sandwich.
Greetings.
I heard a sandwich in there, and I am hungry.
I know. What are they doing to us?
I don't know.
Come on, guys.
I don't know. You know, I am.
Gotta get some trout, Chris.
I do. You're right. Well, Wes is hooking me up though. He brought in like this cozy sweater brew, which is from Iron Horse Brewery. Which that sounds kind of interesting. Cozy sweater, a vanilla milk stout. Oh,
That's nice. It's rich, but it's not.
it.
It's not too heavy. I think.
Where's this one from here? Canned and brewed by Iron Horse Brewery in Washington.
Hey, look at that.
Ellensburg. You have yet to bring something outside the Pacific Northwest.
There was one, the Melvin.
But wasn't that in the Pacific Northwest?
No, I think it was like Wyoming.
All right. Well, I won't count.
But that was a really good beer, so there has to be an exception.
So I'm going to give it a go. Hold on. Survey says. Beer is delicious. That's a great beer. That's quite tasty, I might say. That beer is tasty, Wes. Thank you very much.
Cheers to Linux.
So this headline is a little revolting. I'm not going to decry fake news, but this headline's a little much. Microsoft is telling developers, whatever you're doing in Linux, soon Windows 10 will do it, and better. Whatever Linux can do, we can do better. The tech giant, Nick Heath writes, lays out its plans for the future of Ubuntu and Bash on Windows 10. There's a couple of interesting little tidbits in here I thought we might cover. Mm-hmm. It's laced with this language that I find myself exhausted by, and I'm really hoping as we move on, people can stop speaking and writing like this. And you know, it's sentences like this. The firm recently updated Windows 10 to let users run a range of Linux tools from inside the OS. The firm being yet another way to refer to the tech giant, which is another way to refer to the company in Redmond, which is another way to refer to Microsoft. I'm so sick of it. And then it goes into this sentence structure that implies that Microsoft were the ones to create this Windows 10 runtime, that Microsoft did the development work when it was Canonical that did the heavy lifting there. Microsoft did the kernel enablements, but that stuff was there for other compatibility layers they've had in years past. In the previous version of this sentence, it wrote, the firm quietly updated Windows 10 to let users run. Yes. Quietly updated. And they removed the quietly since we first started. And it's just kind of, that's obnoxious. But they say whatever, this is a quote from a Microsoft representative, whatever it is that you normally do on Linux to build an application, whether it's in Go, Erlang, or in C, whatever you use, please give it a try on Bash on Windows. And they also want you to file bugs, they say. You know, it's a big part of it. The article goes on to say forthcoming updates, some of which are already available to those using the early builds of Windows 10 under the Insider program, includes support for Ubuntu 16.04, more Linux tools like ifconfig and ping. So nice. You can, which is really nice because there's a lot of tools that rely on ifconfig to get information. So if you don't have ifconfig, a lot of other tools don't work. The other major new addition will be increased interoperability between Bash and Windows environments. Effectively, this will let developers call Windows applications from within Bash.
Wow.
Allowing them to write a Bash script to automate complex builds that include Windows applications and to invoke Bash applications from Windows PowerShell.
This all makes me feel very funny inside, Chris.
So all of this is moderately nice.
Right.
Good for them. At what point is Microsoft advocating that you stop using Linux and switch to Windows? Because the headline says, Microsoft tells devs, whatever you're doing in Linux, Windows 10 will do soon too. The tech giant lays out his plans for the future of Ubuntu on Bash on Windows 10. The only thing the guy said is, whatever it is that you normally do on Linux to build an application, whether it's in Go, Erlang, or C, whatever you use, please, he says, please, comma, give it a try on Bash on Windows. That's a very... That's
right. It seems like really they just want users and they want to make it better, which, I mean, perhaps with no ill intent.
William,
hard to say.
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say Windows does it better, except for running .NET and SQL Server. Linux apparently does that better.
Hey-o, call out to a Linux Action Show story. The .NET team was starting to run stuff on Linux and was surprised by a 2x performance improvement before they did any optimizations. This is another kind of story, like I said, we just got a couple of non-Linux stories that are kind of Linux related here at the top.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go ahead.
I am sick of them calling it Bash for Windows when they implemented the Linux kernel compatibility layer, and they're still just calling it Bash. It just seems so weird.
Do you think they should be calling it Ubuntu for Linux?
Cygwin.
Should they call it for Ubuntu on Linux?
I don't know. It depends on what their ultimate goal is.
Yeah.
They might just want to call it like a Linux compat layer because that's exactly what it is.
The technology is called Windows Subsystem for Linux.
Yes.
That's its actual name.
It's the people calling it Bash for Windows.
But actual Microsoft representatives are saying Bash on Windows. They're saying Bash on WSL or something like that.
They say Bash on Ubuntu on Windows. That's how it's pitched.
Not in that article, though.
All the ZSH users really hurt.
I do actually feel like Ubuntu should get more prominence, not only because it's a name brand that people recognize, but also because it is the Ubuntu userland you're using.
Yeah. And they did a lot of the work to help make this happen.
Seems weird to lean on It's not like I've seen Arch running on there, but I'm not seeing a lot of people running anything but Ubuntu at this point. And if you're doing anything in production, you're going to be using the official image from the Microsoft store.
Like bootstraps the Ubuntu image and gets apt working and everything, whereas like getting another environment working is incredibly painful the way they've set it up so far.
So there was a bug on Azure that specifically affected Red Hat instances. Did you see this?
Mm-hmm.
This is a thing that I guess Amazon had probably engineered around because of their long experience. But every now and then, Azure in some senses is a newer platform.
Right.
And the vulnerability was discovered by an Irish software engineer called Ian Duffy. I'm sorry. How great would it have been if it was Ike? Right? How good that would have been?
That would have been amazing.
That would have been 100%. Anyway, so Ike discovered and reported to Microsoft as part of its bug program. Ike discovered that the glitch while working on a hardened Red Hat Enterprise Linux for use on both Amazon Web Services and Azure. Now, here's what was kind of interesting. Is because part of the spec, it should have operated under a metered billing pricing model, consuming software updates from a local Red Hat Enterprise Linux repository owned and managed by Azure or Amazon, depending on what you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Both AWS and Azure utilize deployment of the Red Hat update infrastructure. Boy, this is super boring. I'm sorry. Anyways, he noticed that some Red Hat packages, RPMs, contained client configurations for each region on Azure. From this, he was able to discover all the URLs for all of the regional Red Hat update applications on Azure and obtain access to archives containing log files, configuration files, and SSL updates, and it could be used to gain full administrative access to the update appliances. He said that despite the applications requiring usernames and password-based authentication, it was possible to execute and run their back-end log collector on a specified content delivery server. When the collector service completed the application supplied URLs to archives, which would then contain multiple logs and configuration files from the servers, he says, I've also been able to get access to the storage accounts because he was able to read all of the information in those logs. Microsoft has since taken action to prevent public access to the log monitoring application and the Red Hat update appliances. But it's not really known if anybody ever exploited these particular vulnerabilities in the wild. So he's looking around, seeing these RPMs. These RPMs have all of the source URLs for the main servers. He then goes to the main servers, discovers that the logs are available by reading the logs.
He can just grab those files.
He gets the whole map of the Azure network and starts getting access to the systems.
It's probably pretty hard to run in cloud. Seems like they're getting better at it, but there's always these little problems.
You know what else is hard? And like I said, we're just going to talk about a couple of these. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but damn it, this pisses me off so much. This pisses me off so damn much. Android is hard. Especially the security on it. And this is an article that is probably worth your time. And you may have seen the headline floating around, Android security in 2016 is a mess. He points out the obvious. Vendors like LG, Samsung, Xiaomi, etc., after selling you the phone, have no incentive to keep your phone software up to date with Google's fixes. And everybody knows this. And he goes in and makes some really brilliant points in here. It talks about the MediaTek and Blue phones that were available on Amazon that were uploading all of your information.
Oh, right.
He goes into how the A-list phone makers manage. He talks about how Google's incentives don't really stack up either. And then when we get to the what can we do segment of the article, he says, if money is no object, my only sound advice can be to buy an iPhone. Apple is still shipping security updates, albeit iOS 9 for the iPhone 4S, which was released in 2011. That's 5 years ago, kids.
Ooh.
The iPhone 5 is still being kept up to date with iOS 10. Furthermore, then you look at the things like encryption implementations. iOS 4, released 6 years ago, was already more advanced than the encryption in Android 7 Nougat, released in August of this year. In short, already, Apple has made better choices in how exactly different files are encrypted, while Android went for a whole disk encryption, which tanked battery life, tanked CPU performance. Nobody used it. All the OEMs disabled it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Android's finally gone to its file base, but they're actually not even doing that, and they're not encrypting important parts of users' data, which is detailed in another blog post. So he says, if you're going to go Android, if you're going to stick with Android, you got to go Pixel or Nexus. So, Mr. Pixel,
Bum, 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 bum.
why didn't you get an iPhone?
You know, I've had an iPhone before. I had an iPhone 4 for quite some time, and it wasn't bad, but it's just so iOS just feels like a different abstraction than a traditional computer or a computer that I recognize and know how to use well.
That's a great way to put it.
And so it's not bad. And I can see how other people might like it. They've done a lot of very good
You're never going to
things.
get access to the file system. You'll never
Exactly.
understand the structure of it. You don't have an understanding of how applications can actually communicate with each other.
Yeah,
You have no
exactly.
visibility over the processes on the machine.
I'm also someone, who falls into weird little niches, and I like to do weird things like try to run Ting on my phone or whatever. And so it's just without jailbreaking and then breaking a lot of the, security that iOS has, I have no way to do that.
Boy, that is a great point. William, did you specifically have? I know you and I kind of talked about this before. Do you have any thoughts on this particular topic?
I'm so frustrated by the iPhone, but it's so much better than my Android experience, I think, overall, that I stick with it.
What frustrates you?
I'm frustrated that, a lot of applications won't run in the background all the time. And so, like sync clients and things, which I have 3 of, I have to open manually when I want them to sync.
Yeah.
That is so frustrating. And there technically is infrastructure to get that working, but none of them have it working. So I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, that
and
is.
they can't check to see if you're plugged in or on battery, which I think is frustrating. I know sync thing on Android is super nice because you can set it so that it only activates when it's plugged in and it only activates on Wi-Fi. And then you're not going to drain your battery by connecting to sync thing.
But Wes, when you and I were talking about this in pre-production, I was like, well, do we have anything new to really add to this conversation? I mean, you've got the Pixel, so you've made your choice there. I have the iPhone 7, specifically because of this reason. This was the thing that pushed me over. That and application stability. But your mom, she's on an older phone.
Yeah, she's got the Nexus 5. No longer getting the new updates.
Does that, as a geek, does that bother you a little bit?
Yeah,
Or
it
do you
does a
feel
little
like,
bit.
gosh, maybe I should get mom a new phone for Christmas?
Yeah, it makes me think about that. Like, should I have just told her to buy the book, get the iPhone, even if it was expensive?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could give her more advice. There's just nothing I can do to help her. And she's not going to buy a Pixel. She doesn't need a phone. She doesn't use it to that capability. She just needs the smartphone for the base stuff,
Wimpy's in there with the Ubuntu Touch.
Oh, that's right.
So he's like a whole nother level when it comes to this, because even when you're on the iPhone, you're putting your trust and faith in Apple not to screw something up or not to work with somebody or et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like Wimpy's like he's like the prepper, like the crazy prepper who's got like the bunker that's filled with all of the stuff for Y2K. Mm-hmm. That's Wimpy right now.
I don't want to be that guy.
I thought that might wake you up. Well, but really, what are your thoughts on this? It was security one of the things that moved you towards the Ubuntu mobile platform, or was it what?
Not security so much as just the data pooling, and in light of
Oh yeah, that's right. The Google aspect of it, which we haven't even brought into the conversation. Good point.
and not just the Google aspect, but now I don't know if this is being publicised in the US, but the investigatory powers bill has now passed as law in the UK.
I've done a little bit of following. Yeah,
replacing a something that was declared unlawful by the courts last year and was due to expire at the end of this year. So fortunately for the government, they must be so pleased, this new law has been passed and enacted that now makes the previously unlawful thing lawful, which is just terrific. So with those sorts of things, and therefore companies like Google, who obviously got access to a lot of data, they now become the government's best friend when they're looking to mine information. And it's not so much about my own personal data, because it's all in aggregate. It's how we were talking about YouTube incorrectly content IDing stuff earlier. I think, a trend that we will start to see is data mining for particular keywords and photo image analysis that incorrectly indicates that people are subject to or should be subject to further deeper investigation in error is going to be something that's prevalent.
Wimpy, a nightmare scenario would be let's say you're using Google Allo for your text messaging. You have young kids, and sometimes you would pass photos back and forth with the kids. Those would be indexed. But then also, sometimes like, I don't know, I'm this hypothetical, but like maybe I'd put a joke in there about, oh, I'm so sick of the kids. Let's put them on the street corner and see if we can sell them for $50.
Mm-hmm.
Or some joke like that that is an in-joke between two people that know it's an absolute joke.
Right.
But now, what happens if the government gets access to that data and can index all of it and build a personality profile about you or something creepy like that?
And the other example I've used in the past is that being in a family where there are lots of young children, and as I've explained, and any father will know, young children have a predisposition to take off all of their clothes and run around butt naked, or as near as. When photographs are taken of your children in those situations and you happen to have cloud syncing services turned on, the flesh tone analysis algorithms that can run over those photographs aren't associating you as the parent of that child and the innocence of the situation. It's just whether this is a suspicious image or not. And if that then gets flagged up as you are now a person of interest, that's not what you want. So these are where my concerns. It's not about my individual data. It's about how that data can be
I think even if you don't have
analyzed.
even if you don't have a specific scenario, even if it's not about kids, because that's sort of hard to connect for people that aren't parents. I think where my concern lies is if we're monitoring, collecting, and storing the data and records today, what information will they be able to generate and suss out, years down the road? Because once you have it stored, what you can analyze and look at that data, it's endless.
Right. And as we know, there are so many laws that it's easy to violate, even unintentionally or without meaning to.
True. So, William, I heard you sign. Is there anybody else that wants to jump on before we move on? Jump on. No. Okay. Well, that took a weird turn. That got weird. We started.
Sorry.
I came in. No, it's good.
It's good.
It's good. I just. How have you been liking the Pixel? Let me pick it up. Have you been liking it? Oh, you're gonna let me hold it again?
Yeah, sure.
So you're what now? 2 weeks into it?
Yeah, I still need to get a case and a screen protector. I'll probably order that tonight.
Yeah. What have you thought so far?
I'm liking it a lot. It's I haven't done much. I haven't customized it very much or used it, but obviously I'm enjoying USB-C. That's very nice. It does charge fast as advertised. I am liking the camera. There's some differences. I did like some things about my previous phone as well, but I'm having a good time with it, and the battery life has been great. So it feels like I'm on a modern platform. I've got the updates from Google.
Yes.
I feel like it's just a phone I can use and not have to think about.
I do agree with the author that if you're on the Nexus line, if you're on the Pixel line, you're in a much better position. I do feel like if you set aside the other Google privacy aspects and you just go for the OS, we all know this stuff needs patches constantly. I mean, if they're running Linux kernel in there, there's not only is their own software have vulnerabilities in it, but there's just core fundamental vulnerabilities in the underlying kernel. And so getting those security updates for me was sort of like a baseline. And I'm not trying to be fancy about it. I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to be like some Android master race user that says you can only buy Pixel or Nexus.
Right.
I'm saying really if you care at all about the security of your laptop or your servers or your desktop, you should honestly really care about the security of your phone. And I think that's why I talk about this, because there is such a mindset out there. And I don't mean to call anybody out, but I go to these meetups and I see people and they pull out their old Android phones, and I'm not trying to shame them, but they're really old and insecure. And I understand absolutely when it's a budget thing. Mm-hmm. But even a 5X would be still getting updates, and you could pick it up for fairly cheap.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. I really would like people to think about this. I would really like people to walk around with devices that are getting updates, just simply for not just them, but for the rest of the network.
Yeah, exactly. It's a community thing.
Well, speaking of networks, let's stop right here. And we've been talking about mobile. Let's talk about our first sponsor this week. Let's fit it all in. Let's bring it all together. That'd be Ting. Go over to linux.ting.com to get $25 off your first device or $25 in service credit. Ting is a great solution to this if you have a Nexus or a Pixel device. They don't have like an agenda to get you to install their version of a launcher or their skin. There's nothing about that experience that Ting uses to monetize the user that requires they stand in the way of the updates. It's totally opposite of their business model. Ting does not get in the way of the updates from the upstream OEM. If you have a Nexus device, you get the monthly updates. If you have a Samsung device, when Samsung ships an update, you get it day of on the Ting network. There's no incentive for Ting to delay it. And that's the business model you want. Now that's sort of just aside. Ting is just great all around also because you only pay for what you use wireless. It's $6 for a line. So if you want a couple of phones, if you have a Nexus 6P and you have an iPhone 7 like I do because I'm working on both, 2 lines, $6 a month. Rekai upstairs, he's working in the upstairs basement right now, editing this show as we go. And I'll tell you what, it would be extremely expensive for Jupiter Broadcasting to pay for a traditional phone line. For Rekai.
Like a giant family plan.
Because he doesn't, he talks to friends and family over Skype. They all do Skype. He's on Telegram all the time, and when he's here, which is most of the time, he's on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And so, why would I pay for like even 100 minutes? He doesn't use it. Why would I do that? It's so great because I can give him total mobile freedom. If he wants to go outside the studio and go do stuff, he's got data, he's got cellular, he's good to go.
And you know, from a business perspective, you can communicate with him as you need to.
Exactly. Otherwise, when he's here, I'm only paying for what he uses. $6 for the line. I think it's so great. So go to linux.ting.com to support the show and get a $25 discount. They have a Black Friday sale, and I think maybe Ting forgot to check their calendar. I think some of these devices are still on sale.
What?
Yeah, like you can get the LG Tribute 5 for $50. Wow. And look at this. You can also get the Tintel. I don't even know what this is. A wearable phone and GPS tracker. For $150 plus 50 in Ting credit. Look at that. It's like that is so cool. It's like a little tracker runner thing that has a CDMA.
Yeah, and Ting is great for
GSM.
that. Things you just need a data connection for, you know?
I know. Because you can get just the GSM. You only pay for when you use it. Look at this thing. Has GPS. You can track it on a map. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And it has a phone in it too. That's amazing for $150. Wow. I never even seen it. That is the greatest. Check them out. Linux.ting.com, mobile that makes sense. Shake up the mobile industry and get your patches. Don't let your mobile carrier stand in your way. Linux.ting.com. Let's move into some more updates. And now we have things that are a little more controversial. You might have seen the headline, Core VLC developer says no one cares about Linux and OpenHMD is a joke. Oh my gosh, over at VRonLinux.com, this is a spicy post. An email exchange between Norbert and one of the core developers of VLC. And, or it was Engadget. Do you remember the details on this? I can't remember the details. It was very heated. Basically, the VideoLAN dev said this is, well, let's get to because this actually doesn't really matter, because this is the part that just caused everybody to get upset. Right. The VideoLAN developer said that no one cares about Linux and that VR has no shot on Linux. Mostly it's a driver issue. This got a lot of attention today. And it's kind of disappointing because when the story was posted to r/Linux, JB stopped by and answered and said, hey, I'm the guy that was being interviewed in this email exchange here, and I never said that about Linux. That's not what I said. Now, it's not clear exactly
how that happened, right?
Yeah, but I want to get into the quotes. I want to get into what he says actually happened. But before we do that, this is all sort of the ball got rolling here when VLC announced 360-degree view in the Windows and Mac OS versions of VLC, but not in the Linux version. So the website VR and Linux decided to reach out to the VLC project and
find out what the deal was. Yeah.
Hey guys, how come we don't have 360-degree video in VLC? And as Wimpy will often advocate, this is a core feature that we absolutely have to have on the Linux desktop is 360-degree VR video. And so I believe Wimpy, yeah, no, oh, okay. So the VR on Linux site reached out and got kind of, I don't know, a snappish back and forth. There was a bit of a culture clash. He goes into their IRC. They start making some typical jokes about Linux in their IRC that everybody kind of knows are just jokes. This journalist, supposedly, quote-unquote journalist, this person that runs the website, supposedly takes these quotes out of context and then creates the headline, VLC developer says no one cares about Linux. That's the background. So here is what that VLC developer actually says. He says the issue on VR is that there are a very large number of headsets and that all of them require some different drivers and different APIs to work with them. Even on Windows, it's not very stable. And unfortunately, the people writing the drivers do not care about Linux, hence the quote. But the very, 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 three varies, large majority of developers of VLC are using Linux because it's the only sane system you can use to base your work on. Therefore, I have never, ever said no one cares about Linux. This is the most stupid thing I have ever seen, especially outside the VR context. But yes, so far, very few people care about Linux VR. The drivers are very bad compared to Windows, and the gamers using VR are very few on Linux. Seems pretty fair.
Yep.
Very few anywhere, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
Well, maybe. We'll see. There's a Star Trek game coming out. That might get me to get a PlayStation.
Yeah.
If I could, I would.
So that's
So
VR
I-
on BSD almost.
I had a prediction on that other podcast, the other one, for this year, which was that VR would continue to lack adoption. And I found some figures to demonstrate what the market thought the VR adoption would be this year
Oh,
and what the adoption has actually been. And it is abysmally below target by millions and millions and millions of units. So I don't think calling out Linux for poor VR support is an issue because there's very little VR support, and what VR support exists is beyond the means of most people anyway.
unless you have an S6 or S7. And that I say that because I was at a Thanksgiving event over the holiday. And one of our family friends was there with a Samsung S7 and the new VR headset. And it was here.
But how much does an S7 and the matching headset cost?
The S7
About the same as a VR
Yeah.
gaming PC?
and you know what? It's so bad. It is so worse than the Oculus, than the Vive. It is baby VR. It's baby VR with a diaper on it and with a stinker in the diaper, and it's going around telling everybody it's VR. And I watched everybody there try it on, and that was their first VR experience, and I went, oh. Yeah, you can look at a dinosaur. Yeah,
Right.
you can look at the Jeep's over there, and you can look at a dinosaur. That's VR, all right. It is very disappointing. It's very expensive. The hardware requirements are ridiculous. The headsets are not standardized. The all of it is just it's a total
And it doesn't really give a good approximation of what like the most exciting aspects of VR, or at least like the good ones are.
At least looking from the outside. And I will admit I'm not a VR enthusiast. I do not follow it super closely. But at least looking from the outside, it does look like it is stacked for failure. Core companies haven't come together like I would have expected them by now. There's no standardizations like I would have expected by now. Big companies that I would have thought would be in it are not in it right now.
Yeah, it's still kind of small in that regard.
There's not a solution for the cable problem right now. We haven't seen like 2017, concept models of VR headsets that are totally wireless. What we're seeing instead are backpack PCs that have huge power cords coming off of them. This is not looking good. So maybe Linux not being on the forefront of it isn't the biggest deal.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
I'd love to be wrong because I really felt like my experience with the Oculus was sort of revolutionary.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who like the Vive a lot.
Yeah, I hear good things. Do you have any thoughts on Debian putting everything in /user? Screw it. We're just going to put everything, all of the things. No, that's not actually quite true. But there is evidence of a shift that can be found in the Bootstrap option that has arrived in the latest unstable branch, where a Debian developer has posted news in the mailing list as well, saying that if you use deb bootstrap with a certain command, you can now merge /user with /bin, sbin, and lib. They'll put symlinks in their former positions or something to that effect. Do I have that right?
And it's just kind of a
what-
consolidation, like Arch has done. Is that what you were going to say, Wimpy?
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Isn't this what Fedora and Arch have done several years ago?
Yep.
I think it's funny in the historical sense that now like everything is under /user. Given like it's like some of its original purposes, and just like we could just have those things under just under the root directory, perhaps.
Oops, sorry, Wes.
But I think practically, we have the file system we have the, legacy and dependencies on the file system structure. So this seems like a very practical thing to do.
I was looking. It looks like Arch did this back in 2013, which means I've been using. That's when I switched. I switched to Arch right as the systems I just first set up were switching over, and then the systems I set up slightly after already had this transition set in. So that's my milestone. Was this big switch that Arch did? That's a long time. Anyways, if you're curious. The new option is sort of nice. One of the reasons for the change is that the current hierarchy creates busy work for developers. They have said, like back in January, developers were talking about the change would mean that we don't have to try to harass 1,000 package maintainers into doing essentially untestable busy work to move things around between /user /bin and /lib to support a tiny handful of systems for which other approaches are available. They also say another good reason for doing this, it greatly simplifies the creation of read-only file systems, which are useful for things like USB Linux distros and secure environments, transaction updates, things like that.
Hey, sounds like a good thing.
Not a big deal, really.
Yeah.
Debian's just sort of coming in line with change. But I guess this means that Ubuntu will also be making this change. That, I guess, is
so.
sort of newsworthy, too. And I don't really think it's going to, because with symlinks left in place, it almost...
I don't imagine the majority of people will see this anything.
I would like them to say, hey, no symlinks. Nice and clean.
I wonder what that breaks, though.
There are distros out there that have radically different file systems. Mumble, can any of you be my external brain? What's the one I'm thinking of that has a totally different file system hierarchy that makes a lot more sense? That they're the only distro.
Gobo Linux, maybe?
I think that's it.
Yeah, Gobo was posted there. NixOS also does something
Yeah,
different where every
NixOS
package
as
is
well.
stored individually, every single build.
Hey, you 1604 users, would you like a little HWE? Huh? You want a little HWE?
Yes, I do.
A little hardware enablement? That's right. Starting with Ubuntu 16.04.2 and beyond, you're going to get hardware enablement kernels, which are backported from newer Ubuntu releases in order to allow new hardware to work on the older LTS release. That's not new. That's not all of that interesting. But what is new is they're calling this new version a rolling hardware enablement kernel, a rolling HWE kernel. Essentially, consumers of an HWE kernel will automatically be upgraded to the next kernel offered in the subsequent point releases until reaching the final kernel offered in 16.04.5. So it's not like true rolling. It's just that you automatically get your kernel upgraded to the next hardware enablement kernel with future LTS point releases. I think I'm getting that right.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps a more, not quite rolling, but at least more frequent.
I like that, though.
Approximately rolling.
I was talking with Mr. Tennell there in the Mumble room about Neon. And Neon is based on 1604. And if I do decide to try out the Plasma desktop again, I think I'm going to do it on Neon. And I like the idea that I'll get a modern Neon desktop,
right.
LTS 1604 that gets hardware-enabled kernels, which means newer laptops will be supported and whatnot.
So hopefully a very stable system that's not going to, you get new things, but it's not going to break on you.
Yeah. That is particularly appealing to me, kinds. Mr. Tennell, is he in there? No, he's not in there. He left.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you are.
There you are.
What do you think about this as somebody who's kind of doing that very approach? Do you care about news like this? Does this seem like this is going to be kind of a compelling feature to what you're now using as your standard desktop?
This is great for future-proofing stuff. I mean, even though it's not really a thing, but it's more like my hardware is fine. I don't have a problem with it, but the fact that they're using a 1604 and their goal for Neon is to always be LTS. So in a year or two, well, not two, but a year and a half, it'll be more of a problem that it's based on 1604. Just like every distro that's ever been LTS based, that 1404, like Elementary or Mint or whatever, they always had the same kind of problems with hardware support and stuff like that. So this kind of
that was very nice.
Provides a benefit to that too,
When-
and also because the Church of Neon.
Wimpy, can I pick on you? Do you know, does this mean, like, if I'm running a 1604 install, will I have a newer version of the kernel? Will it be like version 4.8? Or is it stuff that actually gets backported to the 1604 kernel that shipped at release?
Right. So this isn't so different from what's been done in previous years or previous LTSs. So the 0.2 release is always the release where the hardware enablement kernel first lands. and traditionally that has been named after the current interim release kernel that's out. So at the moment that's Yakety, that's from 1610. So the 1610 kernel will get backported into 1604. And traditionally, it's not just the kernel, it's also the graphics stack comes along with it as well.
Oh, right. I remember that. Yeah, that is kind of a big deal too.
But the names of the packages were always named after the interim release. So they were something hyphen Yakety. And I think what's happening this time round is that naming convention will be dropped so that once you opt in to the hardware enablement kernel, which you have to manually do it via updates if you're running 1604.1 or earlier, or will be embedded by default in the 1604.2 ISOs. Once you've opted into that, you will get the subsequent releases for Zesty and whatever A and B might be automatically through updates once you've opted into the hardware enablement kernel.
That's pretty neat. Do you know if this is changed at all, if I've also opted into the live patching service? Or can I have my cake and eat it too? Do you know?
I don't know the details on that. I will imagine that the live patch will work, but I tell you what, why don't we discuss that next week and I'll get an answer for you.
I'd love it.
From an authoritative source.
I guess I'm sort of fantasizing about like a 1604 machine with a current desktop environment, a hardware enablement kernel that continues to get backports and live patches. That's sounding like a great workstation OS.
It really does. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say perfect workstation.
But the only thing that's changed here, though, is that in the past you would choose to opt into a particular kernel release.
Right. It sounds more like how I'd want it now.
HWE stack, whereas this time it will now move with each of the interim releases automatically.
Which seems ideal, really.
Yeah.
And sort of playing into this, sort of making it the ideal workstation is, I saw a really popular story today on Twitter was actually from OMG Ubuntu about, I think it was 5 applications that are already snapped up that you can install right now. And of course, one of them was Telegram, which is
of course they're doing a good job though.
Top of my list. And it seems to be there's some serious movement happening around snaps. So I kind of wanted to pick Wimpy's brain if we could a little bit further and talk about this story I saw on Softpedia that says now you can package your apps as snaps without bundling their dependencies, which I would think would make these snaps significantly smaller, but at the same time, that feels like it's sort of defeating the entire purpose. I thought the whole point was that I download this one thing and everything runs. What's going on, Wimpy?
Well, this is utilizing the content sharing interface, which was tabled at the Snappy Sprint in the summer, which was the sprint that all the community people were invited to. So the likes of the Elementary Project and the KDE team via Blue Systems and myself then as well. So this is when we first heard about this content sharing interface. And the idea here is that if you have got a common platform that lots of applications target, then that platform can be snapped and it can share its assets so that applications can connect to them. So, for example, in this case, the article in question is talking about the Ubuntu app platform, which is essentially Qt based applications. So those that you will find in Unity 8, for example. So here you now have a platform snap for Qt, and you can now elect to connect to those assets in that common platform for your Qt-based snaps.
So does that mean the client is aware when I install something that says, hey, I've already got all of the Qt dependencies, and since that's something that's...
So specifically, these are not dependencies. This is a word you absolutely have to avoid. This is either a bunch of libraries or a bunch of assets, but it's essentially a collection of files that another snap can connect to. And behind the scenes, they're effectively being mounted into your application at runtime.
Wait, okay. So if another application I've installed has those libraries, the new application I install will mount that image, connect to and use the libraries in that image?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
How does
so
that affect like updates? Like if I update one snap, but the other snap doesn't get updated, but it's I'm not depending, but it's linking.
In order to control that, there's a mechanism called assertions that make sure that you can ensure that this particular platform snap is compatible with this particular application snap, and those connections won't be broken in any way.
How does that be feeling like dependencies though? Because doesn't that sound like would that then prevent one snap from getting updated if another snap is using its libraries?
Not necessarily, because the platform snaps can be versioned independently. So in the GTK parlance, you could have a GTK 318 platform snap and a GTK 320 platform snap and a GTK 322 platform snap.
Okay.
And within the application that you're creating, so let's choose Gedit, you can define in the Gedit snap which version of the platform snap it requires.
I see.
Huh.
Okay.
It seems like it's like a handy option where like you then, if you don't want to depend on one of those, you still have all the snap capabilities to bring your dependencies with you.
Exactly. And there are some big wins here. So the sizes of the individual application snaps come down considerably.
Sure.
So
I bet.
for the example of these Qt applications, they were looking at individual applications using about 86 meg and coming down to about 1.3 meg by using content sharing. And also the build time reduces as well, because it doesn't have to pull in all of that stuff. So the build time plummets considerably from, close to 1 minute 50 down to a few seconds.
I bet.
So those are all good wins
for sure.
And it's not just the Ubuntu platform snap that's available in this fashion. The KDE team have been working towards snapping KDE 5 and the Plasma frameworks. And they've been using this technique for some weeks now and have demonstrated significant gains. So I think their platform snap is like 160 or 180 megabytes. And if you repeat that many times over for each of the individual applications, that obviously doesn't scale very well. But they create this platform snap, and then the individual application snaps are measured in 1 or 2 megabytes or smaller. So
their
it works.
300K.
Yeah, and there was a great introduction to this given by Harold Sitter, who works for Blue Systems on KDE, at the Ubuntu Online Summit a couple of weeks ago. So if you go to summit.ubuntu.com and look up the KDE presentation, which I think was on the Wednesday, he gives a good introduction to how, and also actually shows the code behind, so shows the snapcraft.yamls behind the scenes in terms of the platform snaps and the individual application snaps, and demonstrates how they're connected and how they work. So he did a great job of actually sort of showing this, in real terms and how it's benefiting the KDE team.
He's also involved in developing Neon, so hint, hint.
Yeah, well, I think most of the guys in Blue Systems are, yeah.
You're making me want to use Neon. I gotta say, Rotten. Dang it.
Maybe you'll find out on a future show.
Maybe. So, yeah. Well, hey, Rotten, what do you do to mount Samba shares? What do you do? Is that ever something you do?
Oh yeah, just auto mount. What do you mean?
Well, okay. So you're doing it like when you boot up, or you're doing it. So like one of the things I love about Nautilus is I can show up at a network. I join the wireless network. I hit browse for other locations. All of the different Samba shares and AFP shares and SSH servers show up. I can double click an SSH server. I can double click a Samba server. I can double click an AFP server, and it mounts using the GNOME virtual file system as an actual folder on my file system, which we're going to get to in a little bit why that's a big deal. And for me, the fact that Dolphin can connect, but when you double click a file, it has to download the file to your local hard drive and then open up the associated application. Like, that doesn't work when you're looking at a 20 gigabyte MKV file.
Right.
It's rough.
That is rough. Yeah, and that explorability, especially if you're roving around, you're taking your laptop to different networks.
So you use you just mount into the file system, Rotten. That's what you do.
No, I mount it as a network share.
I'm tempted. I'm going to do it. I think you've talked me into it. I'm going to install the Plasma meta package.
Well, I will point out one thing.
What?
While Neon and Arch are both currently up to date, Neon gets the newest release the same day. Arch is like a couple weeks at the most. So like a week, 2 weeks maybe. But Neon is day of within hours.
That would be nice. And I think here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm going to install it right now while we're doing the show. We'll see what happens at the end of the show. I'll log out and see if I can use it.
See if we have a show still.
Yeah. But here's my thinking. If I like it, then maybe I would go Neon. But I might as well dip my toes.
Yeah, right. You have the Arch platform.
I love the Arch package management tools. I love just getting in there and installing things from the AUR like an animal, all of that. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do it just an animal.
Do it.
Live on the show. I'm going to put in my S right here. 426 packages. It's only going to download, isn't that interesting? 154. I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how this goes.
Thank you, XZ.
So as of recording, it looks like I'm seeing a lot of Plasma 5.8.4.1 packages. 5.8.4 seems to be the version I'm installing as we record. So I'm going to say yes to this, and we are off to the races.
Away it goes. That's always so satisfying.
Oh, it is. It is, Wes. It is super satisfying. You know what that reminds me of? That same satisfying feeling when I install packages over at DigitalOcean. For serious. DigitalOcean, if you want to have a great package experience, install them on a DigitalOcean droplet. What's a droplet? A droplet is an all SSD powered Linux rig or FreeBSD over at DigitalOcean.com. In fact, if you use our promo code of power. Did you hear that? It's on paper. You know what that means? It's official. Because a tree died for this right here. You hear that? You can't make those sound effects up. You can't put that in the soundboard.
Nope.
You can't find that on freesound.org. You can't do that. It's right here.
In-house special effects, everyone.
DO Unplugged. All one word, lowercase. You create an account. You put that in there. You apply it. You get $10. You can go spin up a Linux rig. And guess what, Wes? They're not sitting around over at DigitalOcean. They're now offering Fedora 25 images over at DigitalOcean.com. So you can spin up a Fedora 25 server. Of course, they've got the Ubuntus, they've got the Debians, they've got the CoreOS, CentOS, and FreeBSD. And they have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany. The pricing's great, $5 a month for the basic rig, but you can also do hourly. I've been getting a rig now that's like 3 cents an hour. It's great.
That's so reasonable.
It's so nice. And the interface is perfect. Like it's the perfect balance of powerful but easy to use. And their documentation is top notch. They just published on the 1st of November a guide on configuring Nextcloud on Ubuntu 16.04. So if you've been thinking about setting up Nextcloud, want to roll your own cloud, you want to have some of the services, and what's really nice too is you can set this up on Android and iOS to sync with a Nextcloud instance, and it's your own. And you manage it at DigitalOcean.com. You use our promo code. You can get it for 2 months for free. Just got to use that promo code DO Unplugged, one word, and apply it to your account over at DigitalOcean.com. And you can dig around in their tutorials, and there's all kinds of handy information in there. And now you can deploy Fedora 25 fresh. Look at that. That's pretty cool. And
it's nice how much they keep up with the various Linux communities. It shows very much.
What's also super nice about it is they're working upstream. They're working with the projects. It's not like they're just going off and taking the ISOs and like they're communicating with the projects. They're setting up channels for updates and patches, so everything's handled super smoothly.
It's great relationships, right?
Yeah. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code DO Unplugged, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged. So I think this is a good sign. Now, there's some concerns I have with this, but I think this is a good sign. The XPS 13, the Sputnik, that's been sort of like a trial balloon by Dell,
Right.
is getting another update, sort of right on the nose, I believe. It's right on the anniversary of the Sputnik launch, too, which is kind of funny, the 59th anniversary. There's a new version of Dell's, and they call it like a developer laptop now?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't really even know I don't even know if Project Sputnik is the right term anymore, but that's what everybody knows it by. So they have a new XPS 13 Developer Edition. That's what they call it, Developer Edition laptop. It's got 7th generation Intel Core processors. It ships with Ubuntu 16.04 preloaded, the killer wireless card, which are the rebranding of Qualcomm Atheros, and Infinity Edge display in either 1080p or in their 4K version. So it's a slight bump from what we're familiar with. And it starts at $950.
Wow, under $1,000. That's nice.
For an i5, 8 gigs and of RAM and 128 gigabyte flash. Goes all the way up to an i7. Apparently, they say with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gig SSD. However, when I tried to configure one out of just curiosity, I couldn't get it above 8 gigs. So I don't know if maybe it was just Dell's horrible bad website, or if you really can't get it in more than 8 gigs. But it does seem to be encouraging that Dell is continuing to update it. Now, the commenters on Hacker News say it's not all roses. The battery lasts for 13 hours under Linux, which I guess is less than expected.
Seems all right.
When he said that, I'm like, good God, man, that sounds great. The headphone port is very noisy with Linux and not noisy with Windows. I have personally experienced that a lot with different machines. Wi-Fi, that's the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi performance is, I guess, horrible under Linux and supposedly fine under Windows.
Interesting.
You know, I don't know.
Too bad.
I don't know. The HDMI port, I guess, does not work under Linux correctly. So there could be a couple of things that maybe are not perfect yet. Maybe if you ran Arch, you wouldn't have that problem.
That's a good question as well. There's not a lot of details there.
But I think this is a good sign. I think this is a good sign from Dell that they're continuing to build this thing. And I look at a lot of the options out there, and I still think the XPS is a very competitive offering. I love mine, and my drive just died last week. I was reviewing Fedora 25, and my hard drive died.
So that's like the MacBook, right? You can't service it at all?
No, I can pop the bottom off and I can replace it. It's just kind of a bummer that I've
terrible.
I've lost yet another drive.
You just burn through those things.
Brandon, you just ordered an XPS 13?
Yeah, I did.
Well, congratulations, Mr. New owner. Do you have it yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, well, I would love...
It's replacing my MacBook Pro.
Oh!
Wow. Dang.
What was running on the MacBook Pro?
Mac OS.
This is Brandon. This seems like a big deal to me. Am I right? This seems like a big deal.
Well, I switched to Mac OS from Linux in 2008. So, yeah, this is a big deal for me.
Well, I'm going to be really curious to hear how it goes. Will you come back and let us know, give us an update on the transition?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so Wimpy, you have the 15 and the 13 XPS models. What are your thoughts about this continued revisioning, even though it's not a very exciting one from Dell?
Well, it's good because the new line of processors have just come out, and they've immediately revved those two models with the latest stuff. So that's really good to see because they are. I mean, I don't know this, but outwardly it looks like Dell are trying to compete with Mac in terms of developer mind share and high-end machines for developers.
Yeah, high-resolution screen, 7th generation Intel processors.
Yeah, and on the XPS 15, dedicated graphics as well, and all HDMI ports and multiple USB ports.
Is that 15? Is that a
3.
Linux preloaded machine, or is that something you put Linux on?
I put Linux on the 15. The XPS 13 came preloaded.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. My lady friend just loves the XPS 13. Her,
it's gorgeous.
It is that edge-to-edge display.
Those are beautiful.
It's sitting in the lap. She's doing NaNoWriMo. It's got a decent keyboard on it. She can do a lot of typing. For her, it's like a great machine. So it was a real bummer when the hard drive died. It makes me want to just. I mean, I've now lost a hard drive in my Apollo. I've lost the hard drive in the Librem, and now I've lost the drive in the XPS.
Wow.
What? The only thing I do that's the only thing
manufacturers.
Well, when I replace them, I replace them with Samsungs off of Newegg. So that's kind of a common theme. But they're all, whatever the OEM ships them with. The only thing I do a lot is I reload distros on them constantly. That's the only thing I'm doing that's unusual.
I don't notice that. I mean, I'm loading distros on my machines like every day.
I wouldn't think it would cause any issue.
No. The write endurance on modern SSDs now is pretty significant. You're not going to those concerns about am I going to burn through the write cycles on the SSD is pretty much a thing of the past now.
I should get a hold of Dell and tell them to send me one of these new ones for testing.
Yeah,
now, because I've got mine's like 2 years. Mine's like 2 models behind. It's like 3 years old, 2 models behind.
But it looks the same as the current model, right? It's the same chassis and everything.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. That screen is gorgeous. The build is perfect. I really like the overall feel of it in the hand. It's a great little machine.
A laptop to be proud of.
It's just a little underpowered. And so I don't use it for anything serious other than when we're watching TV and we want to browse the web together. That's what. And it's got a touch screen, so
nice.
when you're sharing a computer, she can touch the link and move the screen, and I can move it. So it's a really nice like shared experience computer.
Yep.
And it sits right there, and the battery lasts forever. That's all really nice, but because it's a 2-core slow, I don't use it for.
You don't use it for any production work.
Yeah.
I see.
Not anymore. But I do use it for testing high DPI, and it's great for that.
That's green.
Yeah, I love testing high DPI on that because it looks good. And so recently I've been testing high DPI on the MacBook Retina 2013, which is a 15-inch screen, and on the XPS 13, which is a 13-inch screen. And I didn't realize this, and it seems obvious. It's going to sound stupid when I say this out loud, but I didn't realize that high DPI made such a difference on different sized screens. I know that sounds so stupid to say out loud, but I just thought like high DPI was high DPI. But there is a significant difference to look at a desktop environment on a 15-inch high DPI screen versus a 13-inch high DPI screen.
Yeah.
Well, you even see that like your phone may have a very high DPI screen relative, but to see that on the 15-inch screen is something else.
Yeah, it seems stupid to say it out loud, but when I actually started testing, this is something that happened a while ago, when I started testing the different distros on different screens and just getting blown away by how gorgeous some of these things can look. So yeah. So let's talk about something that sort of blows my mind away, and that's NetData. So NetData is getting support for backend. So let's back up. What is NetData, and why do I want a backend on it?
NetData is a very handy utility written by the same person who has written the Firehole IP tables manager that we've covered a little bit before. I use personally and to great effect. And so, in his operational life, managing servers, etc., he really wanted something that he could just look at to give him the real-time performance information, quickly assess, what's the state of the server, not like a huge history, but look, see like past
Get
hour,
like a heads
and then
up
what
display.
is it doing right now? Yes.
Yeah, snapshots type stuff of what's going on.
Yeah, so NetData implements that. It's just a tiny little binary that you run. They've done, I think, pretty good work. Continually making it so the overhead on the host is less and less,
I think we've talked about it a little bit on Last before too. It's a really neat tool.
Yeah, and it's nice because you just throw it right on the server.
Yeah,
and then it pops up a nice web interface that you go to. It uses it dynamically updates, so you kind of have live real time information right there in the browser.
Super gorgeous graphs and all of that. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. And so like in a larger picture, it's useful. It's especially useful if you have a couple machines. I use it on a lot of my machines, just start the service and go. But it becomes harder when you really want to, you want to have historical information, or you want to aggregate this information in so that you can look across your entire fleet. And they have added some support so that like one NetData interface can look at other NetDatas, which is really nice.
That's huge. So this is where you start recording on a back end. This is where you start working on like multiple machines and historical stuff.
Yeah, so that works. It's kind of new, but a lot of places will already have had some sort of time series database. A popular one is Graphite, which was open sourced by Orbitz.
Right.
And so and so now NetData can interface with that. They support both Graphite and OpenTSDB, which are two big players in that space, and both have protocols that other players support. And so this just means that like, either you can use NetData as part of your solution if you already have this infrastructure, or it just makes it really easy to connect. And then you have the real-time information of NetData and the historical trending and other stuff that works with like Graphite, which has a huge community of tools and other stuff to work on.
So how are you using this? Because I know you're starting to poke at this, right?
Yeah, I have poked at it. Right now I'm just using it for personal use, and that's mostly because it didn't have this, back-end stuff. And so for working on other things, we already have some Graphite infrastructure. So I would need something that would play along. And in the Graphite world, you have collectors that kind of sit on the host, and every X intervals collect information, send it to Graphite, and then it stores it and gives you graphs, right? So NetData does the same thing, but before it was kind of its own system, often its own, which worked really well for small deployments, really well for you just want to drop something, you don't want a lot of configuration, you just want, boom, you have graphs. It can do some like minimal alerting stuff like, hey, send me an email when my disk is over 90% or whatever. So I think now, like I may not actually use it at work, but I think that for a lot of maybe smaller companies, middle-sized things, people who are building a new monitoring stack, it seems like a great tool.
No kidding. Man, if you were building something today, this would be such a great way to go.
And if you look at the GitHub, there's like a pretty good amount of activity. People are adding plugins so that you can have it monitor other things besides just the base system.
That's cool. That's very nice. And Wes has some additional information and links in the show notes. We should mention this. If anything we just said went over your head at all, if you're not sure about anything, or if you're just sort of lost, maybe things feel a little weird right now. You got a little upset about that. You got a little verklempt like I did. Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there to support the show and sign up for a free 7-day free trial. This is where you can learn all of the basics, but also all of the really cool stuff coming down the pipe. The stuff that people are making money on, basing their careers on, getting jobs, getting contracts. And now with Linux Academy's public profiles, you can brag about what you've done, but really you can also show your employer or your client what you've achieved. Linux Academy is a platform to learn more about Linux. If you're an expert or a total noob, they got stuff for you. Video courses, self-paced, in-depth video courses on every freaking Linux cloud and DevOps topic. Labs that give you hands-on, real experience. Instructor mentoring when you need that human help. Learning paths, which are a series of courses and content planned by instructors for specific types of tracks you might be going down, or if you're just going for the certs, they got courses specifically to prepare you for exams. They got a great community, I can say that because it's full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, and they got note cards that are forked by that community that help you prep and learn. And they have nuggets when you have just a little bit of time available. You can just do a deep dive into a single topic, and they have a course scheduler to also work with your busy schedule. Servers that spin up on demand when you need them, matching the distribution you've chosen. Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there and check them out. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Unplugged program. Kind of speaking of the basics there, Wes, there was a great article over at opensource.com by David Both, I think it is. And David wrote, Managing Devices in Linux Using the /dev directory, and how the /dev directory gives you access to your devices. This month, I cover some fascinating aspects of the /dev directory. Now, I kind of say it in a mocking tone, but this is a super useful tool when you switch from Windows and come over to Linux or Unix. Devices as items on your file system is a mind-blowingly awesome concept.
Total paradigm shift.
It is a total paradigm shift. So I want to put this officially in the show notes for episode 173 for all of your friends that you have switching over to Linux that are a little bit savvy with Windows or the Mac and they don't understand how this works. Give them this article. This is a great article.
And I feel like most of the time, you interface like with /dev /SDA1, SDA1, that kind of stuff, right? But that's as far as most people go. You don't get into the details. These days, UDev auto-populates /dev anyway. So
yeah,
you don't, most people don't have to deal with this or use make node or anything like that. So I found it helpful. I think a lot of new users will find it helpful too.
Yeah, and it's well structured with visual guides and all of that too. So you can find that over there. We'll have it linked in the show notes. But it was at opensource.com, and it's managing device under Linux. But I remember when I wrapped my head around that, how awesome I thought that idea was, and how cool it was the way the kernel does that, and all of that was.
And it such exemplified the difference where like Windows, you would. Anything you'd learned, you felt like you would just kind of scrape together, hack and claw to just try to pry this information from this black box. And there's Linux, is just like, but you're like, boom, here's everything that I know about.
So I got a lot of crap it's only Tuesday, and I have taken a beating on this particular topic already. So 2 days ago, we reviewed Fedora 25 on the Linux Action Show. And in Fedora 25, I talked about my upgrade from Fedora 24 to Fedora 25. And I just want to play a little bit of that moment from the show. Right? Oh, wait for it. Right here. Just jumped ahead. Let's see what it says. Error running transaction on libmpeg123.so from installed mpeg123. Conflicting files. Oh, we have file mpeg123 libs conflicts with libmpeg123. Wait, does that mean my entire installation is done? Uninstall and move on. So am I stuck on Fedora 24 now? The struggle is real, and I'm pushing on using the terminal. I'm going to do a DNF system upgrade, and I'm doing -- release version 25, and then tac allow erasing. That should do what I'm hoping is uninstall stuff that's blocking and just move on. So I want to take a minute and talk about upgrade versus Nuke and Pave. And so one of the big pieces of feedback I got is, Chris, you damn moron. Why the hell are you using United RPM's garbage? That's trash. You should be using RPM Fusion. Apparently, the Fedora community feels extremely strong about this. So I just want to make it clear that the reason why I was using United RPMs is because we had covered United RPMs as an announcement in the show, and I promised that I would use it to follow up on how it
That
went.
makes sense.
So that's why I was using United RPMs. So I got a lot of crap for
It's
that.
not that you're espousing or trying to tell the audience what to use.
But really, the whole concept of, well, that's a third-party repo. They got all crazy kinds of applications. You don't know what their standards are. How could you possibly expect your core distro to upgrade successfully? That's the core sort of sentiment that I was receiving. I don't really know where to come down on this. I used to be a Nuke and Paver like nobody's business.
Yep.
All the time. Every 6 months, Nuke and Pave. Nuke and Pave runs better, cleaner, et cetera, et cetera. I like resetting things up. I enjoyed the process. Now, in the last year or so, I've transitioned to I never want to reinstall kind of guy. And the last thing I want to do is set up a new computer. I just like it working out of the box. Where do you fall now with the Nuke and Pave thing? And do you think that is this something that distribution should work on, this upgrade path, or is this something that users should let go of and just Nuke and Pave?
You know, it strikes me that people seem to fall very strongly into both camps. And I think it depends a lot on how you view your distribution and what you get out of it. So if it is just a tool, if it is more, you view it more like a Windows style operating system where you've installed it, you just expect it to work. You're not necessarily tweaking it a lot, or you have made those tweaks, but you really don't want to do it again. Maybe you didn't spend the time necessarily documenting as you set up. You just, installing Linux these days is supposed to be easy. It is easy. You install it, it just works. So in that regard, I think it, especially when you view it like that, or it's an appliance that you just want to be able to upgrade it, right? Like, you expect it performs very well. It's very stable. You expect that same stability in the upgrade process. Personally, I do like the Nuke and Pave model. I don't have to do it that much. Arch is nice in that, I only really do it when I change machines or if I'm doing upgrades or other things. But I do think the Nuke and Pave model helps you track your personal dependencies, helps you understand what things you do need, what makes a complete system for you. That may not be a journey that every person wants or needs to go on. And if you're not changing machines very often, you're not changing setups, or you're comfortable with, and it depends too. Like some people, if you're not installing a bunch of weird packages, if you're not making dramatic reconfigurations to your system, then you may not need to Nuke and Pave, or you may not feel that you want to Nuke and Pave, right? But
yeah, sometimes like right now, I'm downloading in the background and I'm upgrading to the Plasma desktop. I'm like, maybe this would be better as a Nuke and Pave. This might be better as a Nuke and Pave. And if I decide I want to switch to the Plasma desktop for a little extended period of time, I probably would Nuke and Pave.
And something that I think the Nuke and Pave does help, or can help, is that it can teach you, make sure that your data is not local to your system. Right?
Yeah, that was why I was such a big fan of it even like a year ago. I was like, I'm a Nuke and Pave every time because to me, there was a period of time for a long time, Wes, like for years where like I could format a computer on a dime. Like if somebody like I got no problem. Like I knew persistently everything was synced. It was all backed up. No problem. I'll Pave it right now.
And even, and maybe you use something like Ansible or something else, or you have like
I didn't.
Right. Or you even just have a bash script that installs all your favorite packages. You can then that means that you can go from nothing to you're running just like you were in minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not for everyone, and not everyone needs that.
Yeah, go ahead.
On Arch, if you Nuke and Pave, when you use the Plasma thing, if you install the Plasma desktop, you could Nuke and Pave and install the Intergos build setup for Plasma.
Whoa! How come you didn't tell me that a few minutes ago when I was installing the Plasma desktop? What now? What can I do?
You can install the Intergos build setup for Plasma, where you get all the modifications.
Well, what do I do? How do I do that?
Intergos KDE setup.
Are you serious? Okay, I'm going to try this right now because all my packages. So I do Integros. What? Okay, give me the knowledge here, Rod. Is it Integros -KDE setup?
Yeah, all one package name.
All right, I'm doing it right now. Let's do it.
Live on the air.
Let's do it. So we'll do. Okay. Yeah.
I like your colored terminal, Chris.
Thank
Very
you.
Nice.
Ooh, look at all this stuff. So what is all of this, Rodden? What is all? I'm sorry, Mr. Tennell. What is all this?
It's all the modifications for all the stuff that you would
K3B.
Yeah, K3B. If you install if you choose KDE and the install for the Insenchi, it gives you this.
This looks like a bunch of stuff I would have wanted installed. This looks like stuff why I installed Plasma-Meta.
Right.
Like, for example, how is KDE base-lib not installed? How is Kate not installed? Like, what the hell did I install Plasma-Meta for if this crap isn't installed?
Well, you asked for the dependencies of everything that's Plasma. But
Console!
is not everything that's KDE.
console was not installed by the Plasma-meta package. Console.
Right. Yeah.
That's
'Cause it's a
unbelievable.
It's understandable because that's what it's for. It's a DE. You want the entire KDE stack. That's a totally different thing.
So what should I, if I wanted to use console and Kate, what should I have installed? Because I thought installing Plasma Meta would sort of cover me. That's sort of ridiculous.
There's not really. There's not. Arch doesn't have a solution for that. You have to
Okay.
install it like this big list of installation stuff.
That's some horseshit. I got to be honest with you. That's really disappointing because that makes it seem like the only way
actually-
So that's sort of the way to do it. That's sort of the way to do it, isn't it? Is install that Anagross stuff.
I mean, if people want literally everything and they want it come modified by not literally everything. That's exaggeration. But you want the vast majority of the KDE stack, and you want the modifications that Intergos does with the theming and stuff like that, then yeah, you could use the Intergos package.
Good tip.
And it is kind of the Integros value add on top of Arch, right? Like they're picking you defaults. You don't need to go find all the KDE packages you might want.
Right. So it looks like it's up, and it already feels fast. I've got it up installed right now. It feels. Oh geez, the multi-monitor setup is no good. It's no good, Wes. It's no
It
good.
didn't pick the right default for you.
No, it did not. But this is exciting. So I'm going to play with this a little bit. I have a feeling this might develop into a show. It could have a show. I've now lost all of my notes.
Yep.
I've lost everything.
Who knows
I
what's
had.
it's just
I had.
gone.
We're
gone.
But I do have the Plasma desktop, and what's funny, see on the video version there, you can see the windows that I can't see. I don't have those on my desktop, so those are on the monitor across the room from me, and I can't. You guys can see windows on the video version of the show right now that I can't see. How funny is that? How can I move? Oh, okay, now I'm gonna try. I'm moving it.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, hold on.
It's back.
I got it.
Snagged.
This is pretty nice. This is feeling pretty slick. Like not like in terms of like how it's handling my dual monitors, but it's feeling slick in terms of like how smooth everything's moving across the screen, which is
Have
kind
you
of
done Arch and Plasma before?
Oh yeah. Oh,
But it's been
yeah.
a while, right?
And every single time I do it, I spend the first 3 days thinking about how much I love Kwin.
Huh.
That's really
Yeah,
every
that's
time,
fair.
every
Yep.
single time, and then
Kwin's great.
it is really good. But then I miss GNOME after a little while. Okay, I'm going to try unifying outputs. I'm hitting apply, and let's see. Survey says, "Hey, look at that!
Beautiful.
Now I have dual monitor setup, and so now I've got mirrored monitor setup under KDE. I'm pretty much good to go.
Your
and
whole
look,
world just changed.
And look, I've got Quake still, which
Nice.
yeah. So I'm pretty much set. I think
Yeah, you'll totally switch to Quake eventually.
yeah, or you wake, yeah. Well, let's see. So here's the question: while I have it installed right now, and I suspect I'll have it installed for the next few days, will I have it installed by Sunday's Linux Action Show, and will I still have it installed by episode 174? That's the big question. We'll see.
If you experience all the greatness that is KDE, yes.
Thank you, Mr. To Know.
Wow, that's an endorsement right there. Now let's see. Let's get it working on Wayland. Let's just go all in, Wes. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
LinuxActionShow.reddit.com if you want to go all in, submit us topics, show ideas, leave us feedback. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact if you'd like to leave us some notes. Also, check out my new video series. The ones that just published as we're recording today are all about the Meet BSD. I left like 2 weeks ago. Remember when I was gone?
That was horrible. I mean, it was nice to see Noah, but we missed you, Chris.
Well,
we
I got
missed you.
youtube.com/Chris Fisher if you want to see those. Thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you back here next Tuesday. Oh, I'm already setting up K-Wallet, which is the most obnoxious
Yeah.
thing ever as soon as I open up Google Chrome. And Google Chrome doesn't look right. That doesn't look good. It doesn't look like it belongs on the frickin' Plasma desktop. Look at that. Look how crappy that looks.
Doesn't really look like it belongs any. Oh wow, even worse though. Wow.
Yeah, boy, sure feels good though. Look at that. Look how good that moves.
Sliding around.
That does feel that's like KY jelly on your screen right there. That's nice. I like that. Oh.
Can you?
ooh.
Does it have that option to use like the system?
Yeah. What is
title bar
that
or not?
called? Let's go there. Let's do that.
I think if you right click on the top, maybe or somewhere.
jbtitles.com. Now we go boat. Now where do I go to do that?
I
Settings.
just instinctually go to banksuggest.com, but it's still that hover landing page, and it makes me sad.
Use system titles. That seems like okay. That's better.
better.
That's better. It doesn't look like it belongs, but that's better.
There's the if you get the GTK Breeze theme, it'll blend perfectly.
Okay. GTK Breeze theme.
Mr. Tunnel
There's
has
also
all
there's
of
also
the tips.
Breeze Dart for GTK as well.
Oh, I'm gonna go down the deep end. If you have any tips for me and you want to drop them in the Slack, that'd be good because I
Yeah.
kind of think I might want to do a LAS on this, and I'd like to give people tips for.
I'm kind of thinking about trying it too.
The first tip is to explore the wonders of window rules.
Window rules.
Yeah, this is what makes KWin the best. People talk about how with GNOME, it'll remember where you have your window in a particular area and the size and stuff like that. It doesn't remember workspaces unless you install that extension for it. But there's window rules allows you to have a whole load more control.
That does kind of sound appealing.
So I can set every time. So I could say every time MPV opens up, do this, or what is it that it does for me? I don't hear him. Do you hear him? I think he left.
Oh, it looked like he's red and mumble.
Is he talking? Oh, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Rod. There was a rogue muting of the soundboard. Go ahead. Sorry, that your answer got cut off.
No problem. So basically what it does is you take MPV and it would say load MPV on this size, this position, this workspace, this monitor, whether it has window decorations or not, what gravity level you want of whether it has it's above all applications or only in a particular priority, whether it has a specific shortcut associated to it. Let's see,
That could be great for playing clips on Unfilter. I remember Dolphin. There was a problem there was something wrong with Dolphin versus Nautilus. I can't remember, but with playing clips.
You can also choose opacity of the window automatically.
That sounds nice. I've done a little bit of that stuff with when I was using Awesome a lot, but that sounds very nice to have in the
The best
Plasma
part
desktop.
about it is that with Plasma with KWin, you set the window how you want it, like the size, the location, the monitor, blah blah, and then you activate the window rules on that window, and you go in and check the boxes like, okay, remember this, and we're done.
Nice.
That's cool. All right, so I'm gonna play with that. That's a good one. Wes, you see any titles that are super awesome?
Latest Linux updates has a nice ring to it. State of the snaps.
It's a snap to run Linux. The latest Linux updates. That's not bad. It's not great though.
Will Chris get plasma burns?
Oh shoot! That's not bad. Oh great.
I don't want you to get plasma burns.
Oh man, we got to do a user error because Rikai tried out Plasma desktop on his new machine.
Oh really?
I wish I had more time to do user error because that would be a great episode.
You know the people crave it.
You know what I mean? It's busy these days, Wes. It's busy these days with the holidays and the double recordings
There's actually something that KDE does that even GNOME can't do with GTK. Like specifically a GTK thing.
Okay.
So if you have a program that has weird, let's say for example you want to do dark theme, like a global dark theme, you're gonna do probably.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Yeah. There are some side effects in some applications where you have some things that are dark that shouldn't be. And one of the most obvious examples is Firefox and Thunderbird do it.
Yeah, Noah's run into that. I don't use Firefox or Thunderbird anymore, but Noah has run into that. recently?
Well, I figured out the best option. I'm actually going to make like a tutorial about it. But there is an environmental variable that allows you to invoke well, System T said it's the text boxes, and that's the biggest problem with it. They're all forms, basically. You invoke this environmental variable for GTK, and you can tell it to load a different theme than your global settings, just for that one application. So you can fix it by making it ignore the globalization of it.
So do you set that in the desktop file then?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's see. I'm gonna go to audio volume settings. How do I?
And the reason the reason I brought it up is because if GTK2 has that environmental variables function, and also GTK3, but when GNOME introduced GTK3 support for it, they broke GTK2 support. So KDE is the only one that actually still has both.
Hey, let's see if audio works. You want to see?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You wanna see?
We have to see
You want to do a little testicacies?
what you got for
This is
Mr.
Chrome.
Fisher.
All right, I am unmuting the computer's channel. We'll see if we have audio right now. I have a YouTube video playing in Chrome at this moment.
Hey.
Yeah, so I got audio working.
Nice.
You know what? Actually, in some ways, I like the way the Plasma desktop displays my desktop little notification tray items better than GNOME does. I'm sick of that little slide out tray. I'm done with it. I'm gonna play around with Crusader, and then I'm gonna I don't know. We'll see if I can reproduce some of my workflow stuff.
Yeah. See if it's production ready for what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this. I'm gonna put it on this. I'm gonna put it upstairs on my machine.
KDE, the Chris Lass homecoming.